I get it, you're scrolling through a sea of ultra-wide monitors, every product photo looking like a futuristic cockpit, and the description promises the ultimate immersive experience. The problem is that a lot of those promises fall flat once you actually plug the screen in, end up with a massive desk that eats up space, or discover the picture looks great in the showroom but struggles with everyday tasks like multitasking on spreadsheets or watching a movie with friends. I've spent the last few weeks setting up a 49-inch curved panel in a real home office, swapping it in and out of a gaming rig, and testing the USB-C power delivery while I'm on video calls, so I can tell you whether this one lives up to the hype or just adds another pricey rectangle to the wall. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the thing that makes this monitor stand out is the sheer width. At 49 inches and a 32:9 aspect ratio, it essentially gives you two 27-inch 1440p screens side by side without any bezel in the middle. For anyone who lives in a hybrid work-from-home world, that real estate is a game changer. I could have a full-screen spreadsheet open on the left, a chat window and email on the right, and still have room for a reference document in the middle without ever touching a mouse. When I switched to a more creative workflow photo editing in Lightroom, the extra horizontal space let me see the before and after comparison on a single canvas, which saved a lot of time flipping between tabs. Gamers will notice right away that the panel is Nano IPS, which means the colors are richer than a typical VA screen but still keep the fast response you expect for fast-paced titles. The GSYNC compatibility and FreeSync Premium Pro work together to keep tearing at bay, even when I push the frame rate past 100 frames per second in newer shooters. The fact that it supports HDMI 2.1 also means you can run a next-gen console at 4K 60Hz while still using the ultra-wide mode for games that support it, like Microsoft Flight Simulator. In practice, the HDR capability is limited to display HDR 400, so you get a brighter picture than standard SDR but not the deep, cinematic punch of a true HDR 1000 panel. For most gamers, that's fine. The highlights pop enough to notice, and the wider color gamut, DCI-P 398%, makes the world feel more vibrant without breaking the bank. Now, the strengths are easy to see, but the trade-offs are where you have to decide if it's worth the price tag. The first practical downside is desk space. Even though the screen leans into a gentle curve that helps keep your eyes comfortable, you still need a sturdy desk at least 30 inches deep to accommodate the curve without it overhanging your keyboard. I had to rearrange my standing desk and sacrifice a couple of shelves to make room. If you're in a cramped apartment or a shared workspace, that could become a serious inconvenience. Second, the panel runs at 120 Hz, which is great for fluid gaming, but the native refresh is capped at 144 Hz only if you enable the overclock, and that pushes the GPU harder than most people need for an ultra-wide resolution. In my tests, the extra frames didn't translate into a noticeably smoother experience in most titles, they were more of a marketing flourish. If you're primarily a productivity user who never pushes beyond 60 Hz, you might be paying for a feature you'll never use. Third, the HDR performance I mentioned earlier also ties into the brightness ceiling. The monitor peaks at about 400 nits, which is respectable for an office-oriented display but falls short in bright rooms or when you try to watch HDR movies in a darkened living room. You'll still see detail and shadows, but the highlights won't explode the way they do on a true HDR 1000 TV. For a dedicated home theater setup, you might be better off with a separate TV or a higher-end HDR monitor. On the connectivity side, the USB-C port delivering up to 90 W of power is a real convenience. I was able to plug my laptop into the monitor, charge it fully, and use the monitor as a hub for a mouse, keyboard, and external SSD all through a single cable. That declutters the desk dramatically. However, the built-in KVM switch, while functional, can be a little finicky when you switch between two computers rapidly. There's a brief flicker, and you sometimes have to reselect the input manually. It's not a deal-breaker, but it's something to be aware of if you're planning to flip between a workstation and a console several times an hour. So, who should actually consider buying this beast? If you're a professional who lives and breathes multitasking, think financial analysts, video editors, software developers, or content creators who need multiple windows open at once, the extra horizontal real estate is an immediate productivity boost. Gamers who love simulation titles or open-world adventures and want a single canvas for peripheral vision will also appreciate the curve and the adaptive sync support. Finally, anyone who wants a single cable solution for laptop docking and doesn't mind a larger desk.